Next on Relevant Radio, your favorite weekly appointment. It's time for the Nazareth Project. Faith, marriage, and family talk for the everyday Catholic. With your host, Lydia Lococo.
Good morning, and welcome to the Nazareth Project, Faith, Marriage, and Family Talk for the everyday Catholic. I'm your host, everyday little old Lydia Lococo. I'm so happy that you're here. I've got lots of interesting things to talk to you about on this show. I want to start by saying, and I'm sure you can imagine this to be true, many times people come up to me, a lot of you out there listening, come up and say, I really want to work for the church and do ministry. And I always stop. I don't laugh at them. I laugh to myself because I think I want to always say, you do work for the church. We are the church. And just by being a layperson in the world in love with Jesus Christ means you work for the church. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom or an attorney downtown or a, garbage collector, everyone works for the church. Lay persons are unique because we all hold this special place, right, in the function of human society. It's our engagement in this secular activity, the beehive of life, that we transform our ordinary work into apostolic work. And our work touches lives and changes hearts. The Catholic Church, as you might know, has a lot to say about lay people. And Pope John Paul II, I don't want to get too churchy here, but he emphasized the role of laity in a 2000 apostolic letter. Let me see if I pronounce it correctly. Novo Millennio Inuente. He said that we need to discover the vocation of the laity who play an important part in the new evangelization. So in simple, unchurchy words, the laity, not just the priests, can bring the love of God to all people. Lay people, that means you listening, have a real vocation, and you are essential to the mission of the church. The word mission in this context can't be taken lightly. If you go way back to Vatican II, we used to say Vatican II, meaning a few years ago. Now that's in the history books for young people. Lumen Gentium, a principal document from the Second Vatican Council, the church says, the laity, by their vocation, seek the kingdom of God by engaging in temporal affairs and by ordering them according to the plan of God. So lay people are unique because we hold a special place in this whole function of human society. We affect laws, we affect cultural attitudes and social systems in the many places where we live and work. We have an influence that bishops and priests don't have. It's our engagement in secular activities that transform our ordinary work into apostolic work that touches lives and changes hearts. I think you can just look back to think of the good work done on the part of the Becket Fund and all the lawyers involved in that Hobby Lobby case, really, really changing society. So I can sanctify every secular activity in the world that I find myself in. Everything. So if you're digging a ditch or changing a diaper, right, that can be sanctified. The Catechism tells us prayer, work, family life, relaxation, everything, if guided by the Holy Spirit, can become a spiritual sacrifice. Whatever I end up doing, whether it's at work or at home or in my relationships, if I do it prayerfully and with God at the center, allows me to be priestly, little p, right? Because at baptism, we're participating in this priesthood of all believers. But that's different from ordained clergy. I'm not ordained. And we certainly will never fulfill the will of God trying to be clergy. But our good priest friends and religious are never going to fulfill God's will for them by trying to be lay, right? We each have our own mission. And we have to only look at those early Christians who lived with Jesus and the apostles. They knew that the task of fulfilling the mission of the church falls to everyone. They didn't ever question it. We have a lot of work to do, guys, out here in the world. And sometimes I think it will be much easier to be that churchy person who hangs out at just, only goes to the parish and rosary walks and in front of the abortion clinic, all those good things that we want to do, but that's the only thing they do. And sometimes I do think it's easier to do that than it is to be an on-fire follower of Jesus Christ right out in that secular world. Whoever happens to be a stay-at-home mom or businessman or a great attorney, but who's out there in the everyday. It's a lot messier. It's a lot harder, isn't it? You see what I mean? This all came to mind when I was thinking about my visit in the studio that you're going to hear in a minute with our guest, Bob Dolan. Bob Dolan is a pretty famous guy, right? In his own right. He had the Weber and Dolan show and Dolan and Weber and Dolan. And he's also happens to have a really famous brother. Bob isn't a priest. He's not a bishop. He's not an archbishop. He's not a cardinal. Bob's just a guy who owns a television producing business. He has a long history in radio. He's a father, and he's a husband. Some of his clients are Catholic. Bob spent his whole career, if you look at it, in the midst of the secular world. His brother is the cardinal. Ask yourself and give this a moment's thought. Who's more Catholic? Who serves the church's mission more? Well, the answer is they both do, right? They both have different callings and different missions. So I thought this might be fodder for some thought for all of us. We could ask ourselves, what does it mean to be light and leaven in the world? And as a layperson, what is my own role in the church's mission? So coming up on today's show, I'm happy to have Bob Dolan with me in the studio. And we're going to take time to come back and listen to that interview. And I want you to keep that question in the back of your mind while you're listening to me chat with Bob Dolan. Right now you're listening to The Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio, and we'll be right back.
If you can picture it, American Landscape can make it happen. You can rest assured that the haven you have in mind can happen with American Landscape. Transform an ordinary yard into an outdoor living space everyone will love. Since 1973, American Landscape has been serving residential and commercial property owners with certified professionals. Go to relevantradio.com, keyword landscape. relevantradio.com, keyword landscape.
More and more people are talking about Lydia Lococo's Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio. If you're a business owner, your message could be airing right here, right now. With 2 stations now serving the Archdiocese and covering all of southeast Wisconsin, your message will be heard by thousands of potential customers. Contact us quick. Send an email to businessbuilding@relevantradio.com. Build awareness, brand your business, and drive traffic. Businessbuilding@relevantradio.com.
You're listening to The Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio. And now, back to Lydia.
Welcome back to The Nazareth Project. So glad you came back. We're in our studio today with someone whose voice you will recognize. Bob Dolan. I'm so thrilled to have him here as our guest. Bob, I don't know. It's going to take me half the time we have to give your intro. I'm going to do it quickly. Bob Dolan, you might know from TMJ Sports a few years ago. He was the face of the Brewers and Packers for a lot of us. For 8 years, he was the co-host of the hugely successful My Son Still Mourn Its Passing WISN Morning Radio Weber and Dolan Show, king of Milwaukee's drive time.
Did I write this intro?
You did, but that's
hugely
okay.
successful. Where did that come from?
He's also the author of 2 books, Life Lessons from My Life with My Brother Timothy Cardinal Dolan, and a work of fiction, which is, frankly, a lot more difficult, Waking Patrick. I just saw them in the bookstore. You can buy them. I saw them in Holy Hill. Right now, this month has been airing on EWTN, a documentary called Fields and Faith. We promoted in our e-newsletter. And Bob Dolan runs and is the principal of Dolan Production, which involves him in a lot of video and TV producing. Welcome, Bob.
Lydia, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Before we get any further, happy birthday.
Thank you. I didn't tell our listeners that it was my birthday.
I thought, the cake outside the studio door gave it away. Happy birthday to Lydia.
Women of a certain age don't need to be reminded.
We don't
Bob.
go there anymore.
We just don't.
Not just women. What do you mean?
There are some topics I don't need to massage.
There you go.
Bob.
I'll always be ahead of you there, by the way. You will never, ever catch me.
But you don't look it.
Thank you.
Don't look it. And I've noticed you've moved from one side of the TV show to the back side of the TV. Now you're behind the camera. I have so many questions to talk to you about. I want to start with some broad questions, and I mean this sincerely, that I really want to know the answer to. And then I'd like to ask you about the specifics of what you do. How does that work for you?
Excellent.
Okay.
I'm your guest.
Okay. Here's question number 1, Bob Dolan. Bob, we have a problem. We've got a good message. You have to trust me on this. The message is good. It starts with Jesus Christ. So I know the message is good. We have even good messengers. But we're missing something in how people hear nowadays and how they communicate. I've noticed people don't read like they used to, maybe. Mm-hmm. And this is probably, I would think, watching your career, you've become more and more involved with, for example, videos, short documentaries. Communicating to people on film is a very effective way to communicate. Have you found that to be successful?
But even that, Lydia, is losing its effectiveness because the shows that I do are usually 30-minute programs. As you know, that the attention span these days is for far less than that. I agree with you. We have the best message of all. The problem, I think, is there are a lot of messengers out there and a lot of different messages that people are being told. Whereas perhaps 30, 40, 50 years ago, when we didn't have all these tools of communication, we didn't have that problem. I mean, now, my God, look at how many different ways we can communicate these days that we didn't have when we were 20-somethings. And I think that's kind of diluting the message because there's so many people out there with something to say. That's a problem. So how do you crack through all of that?
I heard the young man who started CatholicMatch.com came to Milwaukee, in fact, to meet with Relevant Radio. He's very involved in radio, and he said he's just learned you can shout and shout and shout, for example, to advertise. Mm-hmm. But then he was looking at new forms that are evolving, like the Lego movie, for example, which is one big infomercial masked as a movie in a sense, mm-hmm. right? And how effective that was. He just thought that was interesting. To get people's attention, you end up doing crazier things and yelling louder, right?
Sure.
So how do you get people to, for example, watch what you produce?
I don't know. That's a challenge. You know what I have found is I'm not sure the things I do and people like me is reaching too many new people. In other words, people like you, people, your listening audience, we're all kind of on the same team. Right. We're on the same page.
Preaching to the choir.
Exactly.
Right.
So, if I put out a new program every couple of months, I'm pretty much guaranteed that the same people are watching or listening.
Right.
The real challenge is how to expand, how to get new people into the fold, and I'm not sure how that's accomplished. It shows like yours, new shows that are out there talking. But there's just so many different people out there with different things to say and different ways to view and hear the message that it all gets very convoluted.
Are you a little surprised? This takes me to the next subject. Are you surprised at the success of talk radio? I mean, secular talk radio.
I am.
Laura Ingraham and Rush.
Yeah.
I mean, if they pounce on a candidate,
yeah,
you see a blip in the voting, and you're like, people are listening to talk radio. I have a almost 3-year-old son who came home. It was a hilarious experience watching him. He, by chance, literally happened upon talk radio. You would have thought, he goes, I'm never listening to music again. I've just discovered talk radio. I love talk radio. Why didn't you? And I thought, what do you love about it? But and he's young, mm-hmm. and young people are listening to, Laura Ingraham and these people. So would you have ever seen radio being as big as it is?
No, never. However, numbers are down industry-wide with talk radio, with cable TV. So again, it gets back to our attention span. We'll pay attention to something for a certain amount of time, and then we're done with it. Talk radio was huge about, 10, 15 years ago. That's when it started, the upswing. 5 years ago, probably reached its peak. Even the Rush Limbaughs of the world, the numbers are going down. The Sean Hannitys of the world, the numbers are going down. I think people reach it, and I'm like this.
Saturation point.
Yeah, and I used to work in that field.
Yes,
and
you did,
I clearly
Bob.
got
I'd like
tired
to ask
of it,
you about that.
But now that I'm on the outside listening in, I get tired of it because it's pretty much the same thing every single day. The genius of Rush and Hannity and some of the others is they have the same message. They just wrap it in a different package every day. That's tough to do. But as a listener, you get tired of it every day, of the same thing over and over and over again. The best thing talk radio has going for it is every 2 years there's an election cycle to talk about. And the country is so darn divided, never been this divided in my lifetime, that every 2 years kind of generates a new thing for them to talk about. Every 4 years with a presidential cycle, then that's their prime time. That's their peak period. But there's a limit to that too, and the numbers are showing that in the last couple of years.
Did you, over the 8 years that you did, and I wasn't throwing compliments at Bob. I used to, all of you know, I have 1 or 2 children, and I've put my time in on the old Market High carpool up and down Blue Mound, buddy. And if you've ever gotten in at 7 a.m. in the morning with 5 guys in the back of a van, right? It ain't fun because guys don't talk in the morning. They don't chat. They don't want to. They don't. Hi, Mrs. Lococo. That they barely say
tired.
that. They're tired.
They don't want to go to school.
And they're men. They don't want to talk. What they want to do is they want to listen. Mm-hmm. They would listen, frankly, to Bob Dolan, and they want to hear sports, and they'll hear a little bit of news. But they really did hone in. Did you see your listeners change in the 8 years you were on radio, or no?
What do you mean, age-wise? What do you mean?
I don't know. Could you
issue-wise? What?
Did you have a finger on who was listening?
We tried. That's an inexact science.
Yeah.
But we had kind of a picture of
somebody
our
told me
audience.
about this.
Yes.
You had an imaginary person you were talking to.
We did. We pictured, it was Jay Weber, myself. Jay's about 10 years younger than me. I'm 57, so Jay's 47, 48. But, go back to when the show started. I was about 40. Jay was late 20s. So our picture was kind of the two of us. Our picture, and Jay's single, I'm married with kids. So, which was good.
Right.
Sort of a different perspective there. But our picture was kind of 40-year-old male, decent income, not rich, but, a nice income, working family, mom and dad both work, raising family. That was pretty much our, so every morning we would say, okay, and we gave them a name. We gave fake audience member a name. It was Jim. So every morning in our pre-show meetings, we'd say, does Jim care about this? And if Jim doesn't care about this, we're not going to talk about it.
Were you ever surprised?
Oh, quite a bit.
Like, did you find out Jim actually did care about such and such?
Well, usually we're surprised the other way. We thought Jim would care about something. Oh, Jim will love this. And then nobody would care.
Okay, I have a question. These are all personal questions. And
every day was different.
You know as well as I do that I don't even know there's an audience out there, and these are all things I'm interested in. Did you lead your audience? Did you ever say Jim should care about such and such, so I'm going to talk about it?
Sure, that's part of what you do.
That's what I'm.
That's part of That's part of
but
your
did
job.
You do that?
Oh, no question about it. Yeah, you try to make Jim interested, and here's why, Jim, you should be interested. Here's how it affects your life.
So radio. So that was so important.
It is. The most difficult thing, and I did it 8 years, so it got really hard. I mean, you talk about, as a listener, I get tired of listening to Rush and Hannity talk about the same thing all the time. When you're the guy doing it, and, I don't know if you've encountered this yet, you will. You'll sit down in that chair sometimes with that microphone, and you say, my gosh, I have talked about this 100 times. What else am I supposed to say?
What else am I supposed to ask Bob about, right? So you left radio.
I did.
You went immediately into what?
Into video production. That's
Did you know there was a market there?
I had no idea.
Had you? I mean, really? I mean, you kind of jumped off a really successful gig.
Yeah.
I mean, you were at your height. People would have taken you 8 more years. I know my husband still says, "Can't you talk Bob Dolan into just doing a little sports somewhere?" I'm like, Frank, let go of the Bob Dylan sports thing, okay? Because he listens to, I told you, Mike and Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever Mike and
That's
Mike
a good
is.
show. That's
None
a
of
good
you know what
sports show.
Mike and Mike is. It's some sports show with 2 guys talking about sports.
Sure, yeah.
But guys do like sports.
Well, that's all we talk about when we go out.
My husband keeps up on all sports for clients, right? Because he
There
goes,
you go.
if you're flying to Baltimore, it helps to know what's happening in Baltimore.
No, that's very
it's
wise.
It's your little code.
You better believe it. Yeah.
Women don't have that. I don't mean to be sexist, but I don't think we have the same kind of code use that you do. But anyway.
So we fall back on sports. What do women fall back on?
We immediately feel like we're each other's
Entertainment,
best
Hollywood,
friends. No, I mean we can feel like we don't need a code. But
Okay.
so you leave a successful show, and you think, you know what, there is a need. And why you're an interesting guest today for us, obviously, is many of your clients are Catholic.
That's true.
Or deal with Catholic topics.
That's true.
And you did have a history. Somebody told me you had a travel show.
Well, that's what I left radio for. See, for me, it was time of life. I was about 50. 2 daughters, both away at college, so empty nesters for the first time. And thought at the time, if I was ever going to do something on my own, because up until then I'd just done the traditional work for people.
Right.
If I was ever going to do something on my own, I'm young enough, I'm healthy enough, let's try it now.
Just jump.
Right. And if it didn't work, so what? If it didn't work, I'd go back to whatever.
Right.
I'd go back to radio or TV. So the first thing we did solo, my wife and I, Beth, we did a husband and wife travel show. That was the first thing that Dolan Productions would produce. And we did 13 or 14 episodes. We traveled all over the country. It was on Channel 12 here in Milwaukee.
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. Loved every second of it. I loved the production. I loved the trips. I loved the editing.
Now, was it secular? I mean, no Catholic theme.
No Catholic at all. No.
Okay,
on a couple of trips, there were Catholic elements. For example, one of our destinations was St. Paul. They have a beautiful basilica in St. Paul. So that was part of the show. But no, it was pretty much just, here's what, when you watch it, I love to travel. When you watch most travel shows, it's somebody backpacking through India.
Right.
Or you're staying at the Ritz-Carlton. Well, who does that? So we wanted a show that's kind of just for regular husbands.
That Jim would go
Here's
to.
what we do.
Jim
exactly.
would go. Jim would go. What would Jim do in Atlanta?
Jim goes to Las Vegas.
Yeah, right.
Jim goes to Chicago.
Right.
So that was the whole idea of the show. We loved doing the show, and we did it for about 2 years. But sponsorship dried up because it is a very expensive thing to do.
Yeah.
And so that kind of...
That was a background for your video production, though.
Exactly. And that sort of catapulted into the Catholic clients. Now, my main client right now is EWTN.
Well, tell me about your Fields and Faith. Has that finished airing?
It has. It was on a few weeks ago. We did 5 to start with. And with the sports background that I have, I pitched to EWTN an idea. Let's go find some athletes, either current or past.
My husband would watch that every week.
Who happen to be devout Catholic.
He would watch that every week.
You never hear about their faith.
Right.
I mean, you only hear about athletes who do something wrong.
Right.
Do something, they're in trouble again.
And there's lots of great people out there.
Yeah, sure there are. So we're trying to find some. So we did 5 shows to begin with, and the intention is to find now a sponsor who will help us produce more shows in the future.
See,
so they were on a couple of weeks ago. We had Sal Bando. You know Sal Bando. He's a Milwaukee guy, a former Brewer and former Oakland A.
Lots of great. Bart Starr would be great.
Bart would be good. He would be, yeah.
I mean, think of all the athletes that we have just from Wisconsin.
Sure. We had Bonnie Blair from Wisconsin. Remember Bonnie, the Olympic gold medal speed skater?
Are you kidding?
Great. And how many people know she's Catholic?
How much did I pay for that box of cereal when she
was
won?
on Wheaties.
Yeah.
Yes, she was.
On,
and a nice lady. She does great work for Catholic charities. So that's what that show's all about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great show. And what do you have? Someone told me, a little birdie, I did my research, that you've been tromping through Ireland.
Yes. Sometime this fall, look for this on EWTN. It's called Patrick's Peak, an Irish Pilgrimage. We went in June. You know what Croagh Patrick is?
I don't.
It's the holy hill of Ireland. It's where St. Patrick
We're not
went.
all Irish, Bob. I want to hear this.
You've got to become
Tell me
one.
about it.
How do we get you to be Irish?
You're gonna get me in the show. So tell me.
Patrick, before St. Patrick converted the country to Christianity, he spent 40 days, 40 nights fasting and praying on top of a giant, it's not a mountain like we would think Kilimanjaro, but it's Ireland's biggest hill. Obviously now it's become a great place of pilgrimage. You're literally following in the footsteps of St. Patrick. So my wife and I and several others did the pilgrimage before the Croagh Patrick climb, which is about a mile up in the air. And I'm not very good with heights, but it's a very moving experience.
Oh, I bet.
It really is. Before that, we found a place, Ballintubber Abbey, 22 miles from Croagh Patrick. It's been there for 800 years. Every day for 800 years, they celebrated Mass. How about that? So we started our day there with morning Mass. You walk then through the countryside of Ireland, 22 miles, and you end at the footstep of Croagh Patrick.
Oh, my God.
Then you bed and breakfast, you get a good night's sleep, and then you do the hill the next day. It will be a wonderful show full of prayer and pilgrimage and just reflection. It's everything a pilgrimage should be.
How great!
Oh, it was a terrific shoot, and it should be a very good show.
Well, I hope you'll keep us. You'll come by and visit, bring a cup of coffee. A little scone wouldn't hurt. You could drop by and tell us as you do each documentary.
That. Thank you. I'd like that very much.
Plug it. We'll put it up on our e-newsletter. People, I'm a big believer in so much good is going on, so many great things, and we just don't hear about them. People need to hear about your next documentary on EWTN. So details of this discussion and everything that Bob has mentioned is going to be posted by our fabulous producer, his daughter Erin, on our website. So it's thenazarethproject.com. All his references will be there, his books, everything you need to know about Bob Dolan, but we were all afraid to ask. And right now we're going to take a quick break. Bob, thanks so much.
Good luck with the show, Lydia.
Thanks.
You do great work. I appreciate being here.
Thanks so much. This is Lydia Lococo. You're listening to The Nazareth Project. We'll be right back.
If you can picture it, American Landscape can make it happen. You can rest assured that the haven you have in mind can happen with American Landscape. Transform an ordinary yard into an outdoor living space everyone will love. Since 1973, American Landscape has been serving residential and commercial property owners with certified professionals. Go to relevantradio.com, keyword landscape. relevantradio.com, keyword landscape.
If you've just started listening to AM 1640, welcome to the new station, covering all the counties of the Archdiocese. If you're a business owner, your message could be airing right here, right now. With 2 stations delivering the Nazareth Project and other great shows all weekend, your message will be heard by thousands of potential customers. Build awareness, brand your business, and drive traffic. Contact is easy. Send an email to businessbuilding@relevantradio.com.
We are back with the Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio and your host, Lydia Lococo.
Welcome back to The Nazareth Project, faith, marriage, and family talk for the everyday Catholic. And now, what really matters. Those first Christians transformed society because they took Christ's command seriously. They, going out, preached everywhere, the Lord working with them and confirming the word by the signs that accompanied. That's Mark 16:20. We never know the effects of our good works and actions on the people around us, but I think that the words of Jesus in the Gospels actually don't let us off the hook that easily. We can't let the real work of the church be for those really holy people, those holy people and also just for the priests and the nuns, and content ourselves with throwing a few dollars in the collection plate when we show up on Sundays. We have to take seriously our own call in the world and actively invite people, and that means invite fallen away Catholics to Mass. That means bring people to the sacrament of reconciliation when we go. That means take the opportunity to make pilgrimages or visits to the Blessed Sacrament with our friends. If those who've gone before us and those literally persecuted today for the faith can live lives of heroism, then certainly we can overcome our insecurities and shyness and share our faith out in the world. The new evangelization means bringing the faith into a world that is desperately in need of salvation. Who's going to do that? The world is hungry for the living bread, and we're the ones called to feed them. And I think that is all that really matters. Thanks for joining us today on The Nazareth Project, faith, marriage, and family talk for the everyday Catholic. Stay in touch with us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website, thenazarethproject.com. Remember to call and leave me a message in our mailbag or anything you'd like me to promote at 414-758-2241. That's 414-758-2241. No one's going to answer. You can leave it anonymously or you can leave your first name and parish. Today's show and all our past shows are available online at thenazarethproject.com. Next week's guest is someone very special and someone I really, truly know you want to tune in and listen to. We have Brian Butler coming. He is from the Theology of the Body Institute, and he is going to talk to us about 2 upcoming trainings we have. We have a training in August at St. Charles in Heartland, and we have a training coming up in the winter for teachers and parish staff. He's going to talk to us about theology of the body and the Archdiocese of Milwaukee, how we can get more involved, what we can do, how we can learn, and I know that you're going to want to hear this special show. You've been listening to and chatting with Lydia Lococo on The Nazareth Project, faith, marriage, and family talk for the everyday Catholic. God bless your day.
You've been listening to the Nazareth Project on Relevant Radio. Tune in next Friday morning at 9 for more faith, marriage, and family talk with Lydia. And for more information about today's guests and topics, visit thenazarethproject.com.